Good afternoon. We're so excited with Life on Purpose Live. Today, we're going to talk about television, and we're going to talk with Marcus Pittman, who's the CEO of Loor TV. I promise you've not seen or heard anything like this, which is what makes it so cool. Marcus, welcome. We're so excited.
Oh, thanks for having me, Beth.
Yes. So, you guys are. So, I'm a lady, and I go to church, but I'm not a church lady.
Right. That's good. That's good.
That's
That's
right. So,
why you let me on your show.
That's right. So you're funding what Hollywoodn't, and so you're getting away from all the very politically correct things. And I've looked at a lot of what y'all are funding, and you're completely crowdfunded. So this is a really great model of something that could really be an amazing way of doing media. So tell me how the idea of Lore TV came about, because it's a very good one.
Yeah, so I was involved in many Christian media ministries and like Apologia Studios, for example, and End Abortion Now was a pro-life um, anti-abortion group that I was a part of and helped start. And so from there, I was head of advertising for a major Christian film studio. I was head of video production for their advertising, and I just saw that a lot of the content that is within the Christian film space, or even really the conservative political space, is really geared towards women.
Yeah.
Um, so there wasn't a lot of masculine content, mainly because all the content we have, whether it's from Christian movies to Christian books, they were all made to sell to the target shopper of Lifeway Christian bookstores and the Christian bookstores, and that was all middle-aged women, and and so we've never really had uh, Christian entertainment that was male driven or masculine driven.
Hmm.
And so that was kind of what I saw working on the inside. And I made a movie. It was an anti-abortion movie called Babies Are Still Murdered Here. And that was deleted off of Amazon Prime. And I was like, okay, we have a real problem here because we're not going to be able to make really gritty content, really edgy Christian content that pushes boundaries through the typical uh, venues, and we definitely can't do it through the left's venues, which is like Amazon Prime or Netflix. Like they're not going to take our stuff. So there's this massive middle that just was completely neglected. I felt like, and so that's how we came up with Lore. And I thought if we're what we really need really is a way to for the artists that are in Hollywood to have a way to make a name for themselves and raise money for the content and movies that they want to make, and unhindered by Hollywood executives telling them what they can and can't do. And so that's basically how Lore came about. And that just very basic is Lore allows you to spend your monthly subscription funding movies and TV shows that will eventually stream on the platform. So we're allowing
Yeah.
the community to come together and build a streaming platform together as a community over a
Yeah.
period of time.
And I think it's really great how you're building that community. I've watched some of the trailers of the people that you're funding or have already funded, and they're getting to do what God called them to do,
Mhm.
in a very innovative way, without someone saying, "We can't say that, you can't do that, you can't go there," all the
Yeah.
rules. And it's, my husband, after we did our TV show, he wanted to do this movie, and it was a great testimony, a real life story, and it was a credible story. And he presented it at a couple of places, and he was literally told, "We're not going to make anything that wouldn't be shown in a Baptist church."
Well,
So I
that
mean,
yeah,
like, that's not realistic in life. I mean, Christians aren't going through what you can watch in a Baptist church. You've got to have edgy because everybody's on the edge.
yeah. Well, I mean, one of my friends is the guy that basically created that model where you have to make stuff for the church,
Yeah.
and he's a good friend of mine and thinks that it was his worst thing he's ever done.
Yeah.
But basically, the way it is uh, the film studios think, okay, all we need to do is sell the movie to a pastor, so the pastor can buy tickets for his church. So this sort of astroturfs the box office a little bit, and it's basically, I call it like welfare for Christian film, because you're not at that point making movies and TV shows that are good because the market has said it's good. You're making movies and TV shows that are making money because you have you have a pastor, you have several pastors who buy hundreds of tickets each for their church congregation. So that's not a true market. That's not a true film market. And so what we really need is just a place for no-named, really talented no-named people who aren't going to get the Hollywood contracts, not because they're not talented enough, but because their content is conservative and clean, and they don't want to introduce LGBT narratives and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so we need a place for them to raise money to be able to feed their families and not be dependent on Hollywood's rules.
Yeah. Well, so being someone that's been in the movie industry and the entertainment industry for as long as you have, haven't you seen a big building up of the family friendly, not necessarily just Christian? I mean, there's a lot of Christians that want good film, but a lot of people want quality film that's not, F word and every other word and things like that. So have you seen that just it seems like that's growing so much, that audience, and that audience is hungry right now. Am I right?
Yeah, I think like any good story is a Christian story. And
Hmm.
you see this like The Mandalorian, for example, is a great example of a masculine story. It's about a father protecting his son. There's not a lot of foul language in it. There's is just a and then like even in the last season, there were all these themes of redemption and repentance and sin, and baptism was a major theme in The Mandalorian, which is really weird. But it was amazing. It was amazing to see that. And every now and then, I think stuff like that slips by Disney and becomes a massive hit. And then Disney is like, oh well, why is this a hit and not the other Star Wars films that we've done? Well, it's
Hmm.
because you've feminized Star Wars, and
Yeah.
you took away, even the original Star Wars was a movie about a father and son, right? So
Right.
so they don't have the worldview to be able to see that. And then you see the original Pixar movies were doing really well. Just all the original Disney animated films were doing really well, and now they've just completely abandoned their core audience, which is family,
Yeah.
and they're just making stuff, basically making stuff for themselves, the left in Hollywood, and then they're scratching their heads wondering why they just lost $900 million and are now, I think, trying to sell a third of their assets at Disney. Which, by the way, I'd like to put together a fund to buy the Muppets back.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to call me and we can buy the IP for the Muppets and put them back on the right track, that would be a dream.
But
So
don't you think that people are waking up to the amount of the pocketbook and how much volume it speaks? Because people are starting to say, okay, I'm not going to go to that store. I mean, we've seen the big headlines lately. I might not know how to change the world and get in there and get on the floor of Congress and make speeches, but I can choose what store I want to go to, and I can choose what movies I'm going to watch, and I can say no to some stuff. So aren't you seeing people really grabbing a hold of their what
well,
seems like small voice?
yeah, I think the consumers for sure have realized through Anheuser-Busch, through Disney, through Target boycotts that they have more power than they ever thought they did.
Yeah.
Now, the challenge, I think, is convincing the investors, the conservative investors with capital, that instead of just relying on these boycotts, what we need to do is invest money in companies and entertainment and movies and TV shows that can actually just make these other organizations not needed. Because those boycotts are only going to work for a while, and people are going to go back unless there's something to fill that vacuum. Um,
Hmm.
and, uh, and I think once we as conservatives realize that we need to be business builders, and we need to be disruptors in technology and innovative and all that sort of stuff, I think we can really change things. But it's tough because conservatives are conservative, and they're conservative with their investing their money, and they're conservative in how they spend their money. So it's a tough market, but the money is certainly there. I remember I was talking with an investor who said, "You're crazy to make content for Christians and conservatives. They don't spend any money." But they do. They spend tons of money. They make a lot of money. They don't spend it. Um, they buy everything, right? So it's hard to really categorize until they do a boycott just how conservatives are spending money. And I think the key now is positioning conservatives to abandon those companies permanently by building companies that are good replacements. And what we're doing at Loor is a great example of that.
It is a great example. And so, to the many people who feel like, okay, so I'm part of the, I guess you would call it the silent majority. People, what do you say to people? They may have they may want to write a book. They may want to have a screenplay. They may want to do something really creative, but they don't know where to go with that. Or can they step out? Are they going to get canceled? You know, the whole cancel culture thing. What do
They
you say
probably
to some, yeah, that's,
if you're doing it right, you're going to get canceled. That's how you know you're doing it right.
yeah,
That's why we need to build platforms that protect people from cancellation. I think the number one thing is if you're an artist and you have skills and talent, you have to get your content out there. Don't
hmm
hide stuff. Put it out there, get it seen. Whether you use YouTube or you use Rumble or or Twitter, however you use to get your content out there, I think that's the best strategy in building an audience for yourself. And then once you've built that audience for yourself, then you can figure out how to monetize that audience. And
yeah,
so that's what I would say. But no, we need Christians who and conservatives who really understand the power of actual stories. I posted on
yeah,
LinkedIn, on my LinkedIn today, that the two biggest influencers in politics in the past 50 years have been Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. And both come from Hollywood, right? Trump was in several movies, and then he eventually did the Celebrity Apprentice, which was a massive hit for 10 years, number one show in the world for 10 years long. And then of course Ronald Reagan was doing movies and stuff like that. And they've both have been the most powerful at moving the conservative base away from the corrupt politics of the right or the left.
yeah,
And the reason for this is because they were storytellers first. They understand the power of stories. They understand the power of explaining things in a way that the average common person can understand. This is their superpower. And so once conservatives really understand, oh wait, no, dumb cartoons really are important. Silly cartoons really do matter.
yes,
The TV shows that your kids are watching in the mornings on constant loop are important. And even if they don't have that evangelism message like most PureFlix movies have or whatever at the end of it, even if they're just dumb and funny, that's a real superpower for you and your family to have content that you can just sit and watch and laugh, in the TV. For me, like I remember some of my most potent memories was sitting on the couch watching American Idol as a family together
yeah, yeah,
20 some years ago. So
hmm
that's sort of, you know, what I grew up doing. And then of course we would watch Carol Burnett and I Love Lucy shows and all this sort of stuff. That's a lot of my family memories come from sitting in front of the television and laughing together. And
yeah,
conservatives, we don't have that. We don't have
yeah,
comedy powerhouses. We don't
yeah,
have comedians that are filling up Madison Square Garden.
yeah,
And we haven't really put a lot of time and energy into training up and building out the pipeline in order to create that talent either. But
yeah.
that's what we're doing at Loor. So
So it's important to comment that your content, it ranges from children, barely biblical, to adults. I mean, I love the show about Highlands to Island. I mean, those are young people that are
Mhm.
sharing their faith, and that is so important to have that young voice speaking, with authority. Men, yes, about their faith and the variety, but it's all biblically based, but it's done in such a way that it's creative and it's realistic and it's very innovative, right? I mean, so that's the
Which
trend of what you're doing.
Yeah, we try to stay away from the term family friendly, because that just implies that every show is for everybody, and
Right.
that's not how the real world works. You
Yeah.
know, your 5-year-old isn't watching Fox News,
Right.
right? That
Hmm.
adults watch Fox News and kids watch other things. So we actually want to make content that's for different age groups. Just like we know when you walk into a bookstore, you know you have a children's section in a bookstore and you have an adult section, a newly married section. You know you have all those sort of things. And so we've tried to stay away from family friendly. And what we found actually is that most of our subscribers are funding content for themselves and they're not funding the children's content. And it's not to say the children's content uh, isn't good. I mean, you know, we have 2x2, which is our most popular show, I would say, in terms of like people that talk about it. Is 2x2 is done by Greg Page, who was the original Yellow Wiggle for the Wiggles.
I saw
So
that.
massive talent. You know, that guy actually did fill stadiums, right?
Yeah.
So we have that content, but people are I think more excited about funding content for themselves, because they don't really get that opportunity, and there's nothing there. Like you know, like Barely Biblical is one of the shows that we have that's for teenagers to adults, but it's animated teddy bears reenacting the most violent Old Testament Bible stories, right? So it's
Yeah.
just it's a way for your young men to be able to understand the gruesome brutality of Scripture, but in a fun way where blood is just stuffing and you can
Yeah.
have decapitations and it's just a toy bear that gets ripped apart, which your kids have already done anyway, especially if you have boys.
Exactly. Exactly.
They've all ripped the heads off their teddy bears anyway. so so it's nothing new to them, but it's a great way to introduce those adult themes of Scripture to to younger men.
Yeah.
And it's a great show. The guy who made it is a Disney animator, and he said, "I'm just looking for a show that only me and my son will watch, and my wife and daughter will not like to see." So that's what inspired him to make it. So you know, so that we have a lot of when we get rid of the everything has to be family friendly or everything has
Yeah.
to be so a 5-year-old and a 95-year-old can watch it. When we get rid of those distinctions, which don't make sense, we free up artists to really be able to make what they want, and their ideas are way better.
And that's a really excellent point because you're right. Everything is broken up into age group as it should be. So let's talk about tough topics because you're not steering away from tough topics.
Mm,
You're obviously a pro-life advocate. I'm post-abortion, so I'm a pro-life advocate because I understand what that side of that business is like.
mhm.
Um, and so you're doing Exposed, and I know you're working with Laura Clausen, and y'all have done the shorts for that, which is a fully funded show. People are very committed to this topic. So let's talk about what's the feedback been to Exposed, and I know it's been a very popular series. What have you learned from doing something like that?
Yeah. So Expose was one of those things that we decided we would just put out there on the internet for free for everyone to watch. Kevin
Mm-hmm.
Sorbo was the voice of the first episode we did. He did the narration for it, and it was very traumatic video with, uh,
Yes.
you know, graphically depicting in an animated style the abortion of a baby.
Yeah.
And so that was, I mean, I remember watching the first time I watched that. I was like, this is really hard to watch. And so yeah, so that got over 1 million views on all the social media platforms that we released it on, which is amazing to do in an age when social media just suppresses everything.
Yeah.
That was tremendous. And then the second episode we did was on IVF,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really well done as well. The episode's called "Build a Baby,"
Yeah.
just really controversial, hard to hear subjects. But the point is not, you know, you see something and you're like, oh no, I'm not going to support Loor anymore. That's not how Loor works. Loor gives artists complete freedom to make stuff, and if it offends you, you don't have to support it, and you can go and
Right.
support another project with your subscription money instead.
Mm-hmm.
And if something you really like, you can fund it faster on our platform as well. And so that's sort of like we figured, okay, what we need to do is we need to give artists the place to get complete freedom without us as the network executives telling them what to make, and then let them find their own market and find their own audience, whether it's offensive or not. Just let them put it out there, and that's exactly what we're doing, and that's working really well. And I think we have some of the best content waiting to be funded that Christian broadcasting has ever seen, ever, and probably some of the highest talent I've ever seen. And they just none of these people have been able to find basically a venue that lets their work get seen until Loor. So
Yeah, I was looking at like Churchville and Breaking Laws. That's some really creative things that you've got coming out that is really it's so different but it's
yeah,
so creative.
Churchville's my absolute favorite. I can't wait to see that show get funded. That Churchville is by a brilliant comedian and sketch comedy guy named Mike Akel, and it's basically like The Office, if you've ever seen the show The Office or Parks and
Yeah.
Recreation. It's in that sort of style, but it's a mix of sketches and sketch comedy about two rival megachurch pastors competing for each other's parishioners. And so it's
So
very,
true.
yeah, it's so true. And it really just, shows the absurdity of megachurch culture and pokes fun at the church and in a good way, because it's best for us to do it than than for the world to do it. And so with the idea is just to come in and own all of our failures, all of the things that make us weird to the outside world, and just embrace it and make a comedy out of it. And so that's exactly what it is. It's church comedy, but it's for adults. It's an adult comedy. There's edgy jokes in there and all sorts of stuff that's true to the world.
Yeah.
And so it is probably one of the best shows we have that is funding right now, and I'm excited. I think if you guys are going to go and log in and join more, if you guys want to fund any show to series, I think Churchville is the one.
Which leads me to, what is the best way for people to get involved? You can fund, and what type of content are you looking for?
Yeah. So the way it works, so the best way to get involved is to just get a monthly subscription. And don't, you can cancel Netflix, you can cancel Disney because they're on a writers and actors strike right now till the end of the year at least.
Mm.
So they're not making new content for you anyway. So unsubscribe from Netflix and Disney, get a subscription to Loor, and then you can. The way Loor works is, well, actually, let me start by saying the way Netflix works. The way Netflix works is they take your monthly subscription, and then they spend that movie on content that hates your guts and your worldview, right? So
Yeah.
they take your subscription money, and you have no say in how your monthly subscription is spent to fund content. And this is the way television has always worked with the cable. Cable companies take your subscription money, and then it's funded for content by the cable channels, right? And so
Hmm.
what we decided is, what would happen if the monthly subscriber actually could allocate how their monthly subscription is spent. And so every month, every week actually, based on your monthly subscription, you get what we call loot. And you can think of loot as Chuck E. Cheese tokens. That your money gets you, and then you can spend those tokens, that loot, allocating how your subscription dollars are spent every week. So it's very simple, and it's a long game. And so we're trying to get as many subscribers, and the more subscribers we have, the faster we can fund projects. And our goal is to get our first goal is to get 15,000 subscribers, and then we can fund all of our first slate of content really quickly. And then and so that's it. And then the other way you can get involved, I think, would be we're looking for accredited investors who really want to build not just a single movie, but actually build a machine that can actually make all the movies.
Hmm.
So if you have, you can email me, Marcus, Marcus at Loor.tv if you're more in that vein of investing capital. But those are the two main ways we're looking, both as a consumer and both as an investor. So
Hmm. So and then, you just continue to grow this as your investors grow, your content grows, and 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you're a major producer of good quality, innovative, culturally relevant Christian content.
Right. So I think for a long time, with conservatives in film, we've been looking for the blockbuster, right? We just need another Passion of the Christ. We need another Sound of Freedom, you know. But those are often what I call like slot pulls, like when you go into Vegas and you pull the casino slot, like you're hoping for a box office win.
Yeah.
Most of the time, that doesn't happen. But one of the reasons it doesn't happen is because so many of our institutions required to create a blockbuster. Like if you just think, for example, like Entertainment Tonight, late night talk shows, all these things, all this entire ecosystem is built to create a blockbuster, right? So you send the actors on the talk shows, and you have Entertainment Tonight do the behind the scenes, and so it's like we have this entire infrastructure, but conservatives we don't have any of that. So what we're doing with Loor is we're building the beginning of the machine. We're building a place to actually create and train filmmakers to make a living using an audience, and so that's really the key. So that's sort of what's important for what we're doing.
Well, I love it. And I think that it's a great concept. I think it's a great idea. I think that it's perfect timing because people are really hungry for, some control over what's coming into their homes and on their phones. And this is a good way to do it. So we'll put in there, of course, the Loor TV, Loor.tv, so people can see what you're funding.
Yeah, for your viewers, if you go to Loor.tv and sign up, you'll get 7 free days to try it out, to see how the funding works, and you're not going to get 10,000 of hours of content on our platform, and that's okay because Netflix makes you pay for all that content even if you don't watch it. Right now, we're building a whole streaming platform, one piece of content at a time as a community, and so just know that when 5 years from now, looking back on Loor and all the things that's been funded on our platform, the community will have built that together from scratch.
Yeah. Which is a great story to be able to tell. Look, we did something different. We did it together, and it's a success. And that's what everybody wants to do. Well, it's great to have you. It's great to get to see what all you're working on. I know this is just the beginning. I enjoyed meeting John at whatever conference, and his infamous T-shirt that said Christian movies shouldn't suck. I mean, he was so funny. He comes in and everybody I want to take a picture with him. It was hilarious.
That was our tagline we got started on. It was just Christian movies shouldn't suck.
And it's so good because, we want some action, we want some drama, we want some real life. And so is there an app we can download on a smart TV?
There is not. We're not there
yet.
yet. We're in the fundraising. We're funding content first. So join our platform to fund it. I consider it's like Costco. You get your membership to Costco, and then you can buy other stuff. So this is how it works. You join the subscription, and then with our next round, once we close our next investment round, we're going to be developing all the Roku and streaming and moving more towards a streaming platform. But think of us as a fundraising platform right now.
Good. And it's very innovative, and I love it. And I love all the things you do that are so different and fun and festive.
Just so people know, we don't want to be on Roku because we don't want to get canceled from Roku. And they have a lot of rules, and they also take 30% of your income from the platform, which that's money taken away from the artists.
That's right.
So we're going to try to avoid that as long as possible until it makes financial sense to be able to do that. But I'd like the 30% to go right to the artists and funding the content early on.
Agreed. That's great. Well, Marcus, so excited to have you. Hopefully we'll do this again. We'll come back and talk about some more things that are funding, and excited about Loor.tv and all y'all are doing, and keep it up. It's very innovative and what gets people out of their comfort zone, and that's a great thing.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you. See ya.